So first, today many of my Dharma friends, new and senior Dharma friends, have assembled, and I'm extending a Dashidele to you. And we have a connection through the Holy Dharma, and that is very important and very meaningful. If you only engage in a small activity, that will bear great fruitions, great results. So your coming here is very meaningful, and from the depth of my heart, I extend the warm Dashidele.
Rama Pimpada, Yena Dela, the other Batam, Teletin, Yuri, listen to me. Amber tree, which was on the Shina, Yaka Pimpada, Tato, Yaka Poli Deva, Tato, Sadisa, Deva, Priori, that's the Yelkin, don't be Timo. Yes.
And so the Tibetan word Dashidele actually is very meaningful. Tashi means, it actually means auspicious, and it means that within a state of great clarity and wisdom, may we recognize the unmistaken crucial points of what must be adopted and what must be given up, what must be done and what must be given up. And then Dashidelek, that refers to all the good things, and it refers to depending on that wisdom that knows what to do and what not to do, we will achieve the temporary happiness and the ultimate, the temporary benefit and the ultimate happiness, the benefit for oneself and the happiness of others. That arises from this wisdom. So when we take refuge in the three jewels as we engage in the Holy Dharma, as a result of that, we will achieve the temporary benefits of achieving rebirth in the higher realms and the ultimate happiness, which is the achievement of enlightenment. So the word Dashidelek is very meaningful.
Jacob Dena, Sonam Jacob Rama, Deji Yoba, in Mary, Deji Tazare, they bottom to the prairie, Chiluk Dramida, living in Dramida, Tapar Pesa, Tapar Chisa, Tami Chiluk, the Dimero, need Lago, make date such a then you can Chilok Tapjena, Sunam Sabori. Oh, that's the Rana drug Shila, Tabichilo, him block in it. 그 찾기냐 보여래. 그래서 참 내원도 내가 살짝 가시를 이제 바자로 막 쪽 레비진이 용사 강의 제사들이 이라고 로마 가시를 딱 벌써 걸죠. 다른 라마도 고도 중바도 그냥 시리죠 말들이 고도 들이 내려서 나오는데나 내가 때를 제다로 많이 맞지나 그래서 필요보다 소소 그 교육이 마음에 넣어래. 되나 따뜻하고도 좋은까지 있나. 그니 이빨 경제들이 수당 무슨 수학선 수학파선 비는 교육이 오라마다가 여기래 고래. 대나 탐지에 수능 침보래. 수능 침보는 대수능 몇 시고래. 담비 주고는 조달량 남들은 내 시고래. 내 시는 명시는 인고래. 명시는요. 같이 특상 상고 여러 장 랑그 추당 고소야 보면은 랑그 추바다 상가야 보면은 랑들고 내 담보 따와 양tab봐. 그리 뭐가 양철이 양tab봐. 내가 양tab봐. 다 보면 사통 내가 될게 별라비야 보통 마시나 갖고를 빼놔다고 우리 가야 이런 말이 저도 막 하고 말 됐다 많이 봐. 됐다 별진이 tema 이거다 다 담고 수능 침보래. 제소소 실내 여신이 이거 빠져가 딱 빠져라. 쉬어 잘 때는 들어가지. 사지가 땜바들한테 인식고 사지가 땜바라 때는 소모 여신이 제말 끼고 그래. 지선 타만하고 뭐 그냥 저기 들리랑 그때서 선쪽으로 동다야 되리. 대참은 신고 그래야지.
So this place here is it's a very good place because people here are joyful and people have like a light mind, which means kind of like they are a broad mind. They feel at ease, and it is because my Dharma friends in this country have a lot of merit. This is a country that is an independent country. It is a very happy country, a country where people can live in joy. And in this country there is many different religions and there is many different teachers, spiritual masters and different Dharma teachings. There are the systems of the Dharmas, the religions, and then there is the human worldly tradition. These open up the eyes to understanding what must be done and what must be given up. So all you, my Dharma friends, have a lot of merit. And if we really want to engage in Dharma practice, we have all the criteria complete here. We can easily engage in Dharma practice because there is other places in the world where the country is more poor and the people don't encounter easily a spiritual master, and the disciples sometimes worry and they say, you're the only one that I can talk to and there is no one else. But here this is not the case. There is many great spiritual masters that always live here and come here. And also in particular in the Drikung lineage, we have here a spiritual master who has perfected the activities of listening, pondering and meditation, who has perfected and complete these 3 higher trainings. So we have someone even here that possesses all these great qualities. So we can consider ourselves to have great merit. It's important to understand this. Depending on the Holy Dharma teachings, we begin to understand what actions need to be adopted and what actions need to be abandoned. In order to know that, we must rely on spiritual masters. And it must be a spiritual master who has all the required qualities. If the spiritual master has not perfected the view, meditation, conduct, and then the fruition from that, then it will be very difficult to show the path. I personally do not have many qualities and I only know a fraction of things to tell, but there are actually great masters here, authentic masters. Therefore you have a great merit. And therefore I'm always saying that. It is very special. And that is important to understand because if one enters the Buddha's teachings, one also must know how to rely on the Buddha's teachings, how to practice them. And in the beginning, we must rely on an authentic, genuine spiritual master. And therefore, I am introducing you to genuine, authentic spiritual masters. So you all are very unfortunate and can consider yourselves happy. And it is important that you all know that.
느끼는 대화도 tabla 때문에 답이 기록 느끼므로 이지 그가 적치거래 느끼므로 적치고 오 마치 약합들이라고 차고리 썸이 참지성을 찌르게 많이 좋고 내 약합들이라고 속지려나 여러 사람을 들으리 라는 것밖에 없는 통화 마대와 제일이라고 차고서는 느끼므로 잡고 쉬죠 답이 출력다면 자본주의 출력 요체에 참말 뭐하고 어쩌봐야지 뭐 출력이야 보이 구조도 빨리 말해 라나 내 가별 제와야 거지 출력 참아지 출력은 무슨 출력 참아지 돈 받다고 맞아 참아 들을 출력 참아 내 잡아 내가 붙여버리야 야 때문에 뭐 출력도 뭐 구조는 뭐 뜻정내 받쳐야 깜깜을 열어드리 깜깜이라 잡고 끝에다 이렇게 물어보는 약합을 제와요 그래 무슨 출력과 상관 출력 상관 뜻도 되네 라는 게 무엇보다 라는 양철리도 깜이 소소소소라는 양철리 그래서 출력 상관 약골이 상관 철들들에서 철리 드리지 따지는 답을 출력을 주고 하고 그래 이 하자 귀침을 해야지
And so in this world, we are also all striving for methods to achieve happiness in this world. And in order to achieve that, there are two systems. There is the worldly human tradition, and then there is the tradition of the holy Dharma. Then one must know how to practice them, how to engage in practice. For example, from a worldly perspective, one may have the intention that this country will become good, that this country will experience happiness. And then one will not just focus on oneself or one individual particular person, but one will have the broad view of seeing the entire country, even if that entails a small harm towards oneself. But it benefits the country. And then in terms of the religion, there is many types of religion in this world, and although there is many, its purpose, its essence is a single one. And therefore we should never say my religion is good and then the other one is bad. We just enter different religions due to our different karmic connections. But all the religions in the world have come down to the same meaning. This is how we must understand them. And then they will remain within this world. So we must let go of the thought that my religion is good and the other religion is not so good. We must see them all as good, all the religions. If we see ourselves as good and the other one bad, then it is like two porcelain cups crushing together and then they both break. So in order for us to turn out well, we must perceive all the religions as good and we must merge with the religions. Of course, when it comes to practice, then we must engage in our particular practice. At the same time, it is very important that we see all the other religion also as good.
근데 상하지 봐도 강해 소장이 강해지나 끼가 남들을 말아야 되네 당고 소탈 받을 상시 내가 상하들이 요거요리 가자 카카카가 많이 봐 람파카 많이 봐 대시고 내가 너무 지금 너무 들이 양가들이 로마들이 메도는 제가 제가 시고요리 야 소탈가 너무 매나 산쪽에 세는 거지 이렇게 들고 말이 대마 끼와 끼가 탑게 소탈가 너무 많던지 내 속에 들어야는 옆에 랑게 막기와 빵기와 좀 줄이라면 때려 뛰네 这个大队是不切的，三十次的人，30世纪没呢，上下个人西藏东洋这人，别个早晚的出来了那里，人满一把出去了。这抗议了，长期就是这长期他们这个干了，你就咋个的嘛是，我看你嘛是，讲的，都那个假设了的，说的嘛，都没嘛的大变都能用，大变就没得了，说当他说老讲了几了，你要做很多嘛，各位，你要不说的这不这个大变的，说他个老的当不。난징이 집에 너무 같아 빵들 사서고 때문에 난징 빵 난징 그 빵송나 그리 가면 세계 내로 호텔 이게 세계 이제 내로 뜻관이 하고 오 서바 자치 못 잡혀요 서바 자치 못 잡는 시합 자치 못 잡혀요 시합 자치 못 잡았더니 호텔이가 나와 세면이 막 나와 sem수 타고 생리 동바 타줄더니 다방 하는 저 그거를 그 남들을 많이 했더니 요구를 했지.
And so today, according to the wishes of my Dharma friends, I will talk about the creation stage and the completion stage practices. And so generally we have the three vehicles of the Pratimoksha, the Bodhisattva and the Vajrayana vehicle. The practices of creation and completion stages belong to the Vajrayana vehicle, the vehicle of secret mantra. So what does the secret mantra mean and the Pratimoksha and the Bodhisattva vehicle? These vehicles can be practiced by one single person gradually. So in the beginning one must have the Pratimoksha commitment. Then in the middle, the Bodhisattva commitment, and the fruition will be the Vajrayana, the secret mantra vehicle. So it is actually not a separate or different path. It is important to understand that it is just like you have a big tree, and then from the tree grows the branches and the leaves, the flowers, and ultimately the fruit. This is how we must understand it. If we do not have the Pratimoksha vows as a basis, then we cannot give rise to bodhicitta. So in order to give rise to bodhicitta, we must have the Pratimoksha as a basis. Here one first fears the suffering of the lower realms, and therefore one abandons engaging in non-virtuous actions, and one will practice the virtuous actions. And then one must eliminate self-grasping. In order to eliminate self-grasping, we enter the path of the bodhisattvas. And also without bodhicitta, the bodhisattva commitment, we cannot engage in the secret mantra, the Vajrayana practice. Even if we hear or study the Vajrayana teachings, there will be no fruition if it is not founded on bodhicitta. So that is the unmistaken word of the Buddhas of the three times. It is unchanging. So these paths actually are not separate from each other. In the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it is said, all suffering without exception comes from wishing for one's own happiness. So for as long as we have not eliminated self-grasping, we have not cultivated like the fruit of the Bodhisattva vehicle. The only method to cultivate or to eliminate self-grasping is bodhicitta, giving rise to the altruistic mind. And then we abandon the afflictive emotions that arise from the self-grasping mind. If we give rise to bodhicitta, then we will directly eliminate the self-grasping mind. And if we have eliminated the self-grasping mind, depending on that, we will come to realize the nature of our mind. We will understand that the basis of the ground of samsara and nirvana is a single one. It comes down to the nature of mind. When one realizes that, one's mind will become very vast. One will have great wisdom. So then one has understood the roots of samsara and nirvana. As it is said, we must resolve appearances to be mind, and then we must resolve mind to be emptiness. So that is then the path of the secret mantra or the Vajrayana. So in that way, we must gradually progress along the path.
刚才就第四步说真的到什么Bardo是这种那个垃圾，刚才最大的事情就是垃圾，我大你们没发生，那大的最大的事情就是垃圾，最不大的没希望就是垃圾，你不演了，这可能是我吃不着，这个也没演了是吧？后面让我，因为他家这么够理解不了的。我大你们没发生了。一个空窗了，这个是把空窗过了的，是成了你梦的了。大体的有的，这个大东的大，这是这叫国汉话，我不要这个啊。
这个。
好，这种啊。
这个。
别的人就不吃了。
And so in terms of the secret mantra, Lord Shikden Sungren has said the difference between sutra and mantra is the empowerment. So when we enter the gates of secret mantra, then we may receive the empowerment. But if we do not understand the meaning of the secret mantra, then also it is not appropriate to receive empowerment. So until in the secret mantra, we must cultivate also the altruistic mind. And so the altruistic mind dispels the self-grasping mind. And if one is able to give rise to such a vast altruistic mind, then depending on that, one will realize the secret of the secret mantra, which is the selflessness. And then one gives rise to unconditioned, non-concept bound compassion. Only then one can realize selflessness, that there is no self. So when one understands that, then vast altruistic mind for all sentient beings will arise. And then one understands the very embodiment of this bodhicitta is the Buddha. One begins to understand the qualities of the Buddha's three kayas. So in the secret mantra it is said one must understand the symbol, the meaning, and also the sign. For example, when you have the form of the Buddha Vajradhara who holds the Vajra and bell cross, that's the symbol. So if I take that literal and then I sit like 1 year like a statue like Buddha Vajradhara, nothing much will happen. This is just the symbol. One also must understand the meaning of that. And so the meaning of that is, the meaning of the Vajra is the method aspect, great compassion. So when one understands that, then one also begins to realize that all phenomena of samsara and nirvana lack any true existence from their own side, any inherent existence. One discerns between samsara and nirvana, samsara having the nature of suffering and nirvana having the nature of lasting happiness. So due to the fault of clinging to the reality of samsara, the reality of appearing phenomena, samsara is established. If one does not grasp, then the Pure Lands are established as a result of that. So that is the difference. It lies within the grasping mind. So its basis, both the basis of samsara and nirvana, as we have mentioned the other day, and Milarepa had said, you must resolve appearances to be minds, and you must resolve minds to be emptiness. Samsara and nirvana have a single ground, and this ground lacks any inherent true existence. And so that is the meaning of the bell. One realizes the empty nature of all phenomena of samsara and nirvana. That the bell is symbolizing emptiness because when you ring the bell, you can hear the sound, but yet you cannot say that the sound of the bell is actually existing. You cannot find it anywhere. What is its shape, its color, its form, where exactly is it? One cannot determine it. So therefore the bell symbolizes the meaning of emptiness. It appears, it is apparent, and yet it lacks any true existence. So one doesn't grasp its existence. Guru Rinpoche has said the external universe and internal sentient beings appear, but they lack any true existence from their own side, any inherent existence. If we grasp at their true existence, from this grasping, the thoughts of attachment and aversion will arise. And whoever grasps at them, this mind will become like an ice block. If one does not grasp at whatever appears, one may partake of whatever appears. Milarepa had said the 6 senses are in unconstrained ease, if there is no attachment and no aversion. Then whatever appears will appear just like a dream, and in that way one's conduct becomes the illusion-like conduct. Things appear, yet they're empty. That is the union of appearance and emptiness, or the union of sound and emptiness. So the appearances manifest, and if we cling to their reality, then we will be kept in bondage. If we do not cling to their reality, we will not be kept in bondage. So that is the meaning that we need to understand of the Vajra and the bell. So not just the symbol, but also the meaning. So the meaning of the Vajra and bell is the union of emptiness and compassion. If we give rise to unconditioned compassion, we will realize emptiness. And when we realize emptiness, we will not grasp at any phenomena of samsara and nirvana. Whatever appears will be realized to be emptiness, and that is the union of appearance and emptiness. So when we realize that meaning, such a person may have the same normal, ordinary external appearance and body, but within the mind, inside, there is no clinging fixation to the 5 desirables of the senses. There is no arising and no cessation. Lord Chikden Sungen has said, I am a yogi who realizes the 3, this lifetime, the Bardo, and the next lifetime to be one. So, for example, when we have realized that, then we, a sign of that is that the afflictive emotions diminish, and our conduct, our behavior will become peaceful and subdued and well-mannered. Just like you can see with Khenpo Philtrim, who is here, he has perfect manners, and he's peaceful and subdued. And if I say silly things, he does not respond to that. So he practices patience. So if we are able to practice patience, and if we're able to practice patience, even if others may get angry at us, then it is a sign that we have eliminated afflictive emotions and have realized its meaning.
Telota, Tata, Kata Tawa Yang Tapaki, Namba Sanji Tawati, Yang Tapa Yinji, Tapa Mayin Pati, Chatamato Pati, Yu Mare, Kang Ta Musitri, Namba Tawa Katapa Yang Tama, Kanda, Tony the Kingi Yuan Jersey Boret, Tony the Kingi Yuan Jermachina. 가시가 또니 학고요. 야. 나 말고 상해 학고만 시작 주로 가시 학고요. 또니 저것도 강한 제도고요 말이. 남이 준비 남규모 받대. 리전 들마시나. 코가 타고요 말이. 가시 님께 쏘지 모래. 봉투니 님께 쏘는 거요. 대통령 누가 망고 요래 떨어지게 동요 말이. 대통령이 뭐요? 가다 대다가 대고요. 같이 돈이 딱 놓고 같이 인기 또 놓은 거고요. 기와들아 같이 돈이 딱고 같이 인기 딱 놓고 마음을 지어서 참아지 나보다 와서 욕도 대통령이 좀 쓰는 게 준비돼. 며칠 내가 돈이 된 기계가 성도 제일 맞췄나? 제대로 상지에 적대로 말이야. 내가 빼 강리 로직적으로 우리 전다상 적이 말이에요. 싸하고 돈 남자 바꾼 거를 다 밀고 뭐 제가 남자 좀 줘더라. 남자도 가래 속 차다 비세요 오라. 남자 돈을 가지고 가래 피는 없지. 저쪽 피는 거야. 돈 가래 나 남자를 봐. 돈 가래 돈이 이제 이것도 돈 많이. 여기는 나쁜 돼야 말아. 나 같이 약보들은 나 저게 백비대 좋은 거도 왜 저렇게 지는 것도 저는 저게 똑똑 차는 거야. 네. 야, 이거지. 며칠 이거들 그런 지하고 말봐. 네. 그걸 빨리 가고 나도 이제는 되나? 저게 내가 듣고 요래 빼나. 나도 짠나고 저 가르치는 나를 내가 듣고 요래. 왜 되는 총은 근데 상하가 동상치 대답하셔. 민지 동지 시고 고고 시는 양철이 오고를 막고 저게 시바삼지 좋고요 말이. 싸우냐고 말아. 나도 참이 싫어요. ramjinga rasang shirame rasang de rasa yumen 달롱 이 동시 바sam지 좋고요 말이 고고 무슨 고아차고 고아sam지 좋고를 용고를 세비 돌아 강이 돈이지 시랍들이 야 시랍들은 인기든 진이 시랍 같은 유무 바탕지 매박 공을 시고야 빼라 시답이 전부들 나오나 좀 시랍구나 시라고 떨어뜨 인기 떨어뜨는 윤모들 대발 공도 왔어. 또 대시고 대리에서는 들이서는 남자 맞아오면 난 동대 시소나 딱 가리는 나는 윤모만 대발 공 주고요래. 난 답이요래. 동이 굉장히 냠도 보고래시. 배라 돈이 굉장히 냠들 마시나. 이게 기뻐지나. 감성 세계의 디지털 자체와 행사와 장방을 남양 돌아줘야 말이에요. 가족 세계도 같이 돌아버리. 가족 돌아버리. 육지중에 대다 좁은 타요 말이에요. 되게다 탕체 이게 체감들이 때 이게 같이 누가 잡혀요. 이게 대답을 끼나 돈이 신앙 강리 동무고 생기 대다고 장미 받지 요나 동무보다 나 죽거래서 자세라는 소들면은 다 이제 동이 많이 나ppe 돌린 용실 사지가 쳤대나 철랑 쓰고 공부하는 친구 오 동이 다 나한테 얘기하세 나 우리한테 돈 많이 얘기했어 때려서 참 민기 치고지는 나 매발 공투도 나 내는 고마면 너 같이 다음은 별로 장롱 사야마고는 이마치 참 장롱 여러 그래 오 타도 그렇게 당 고대 최상기 내 바람 맞았다 대신에 돈이 되는지 내가 주마다 세계 쳐봐졌다 삼중지 주고 코너에 쳐거려 그래 때는 말하게 봐지 공짜도 돈이 인지장장 공을 내려와. 그래 대해서 뭐 빼다 막해. 라마 이게 생기의 동지 주시 왕거리. 쭉 작사를 그리 뭐에 몸내 제가 주도 따라야 돼. 말해서 주시 왕거 뭐를 해서 내가 주시 왕거를 잡아 생긴 인기가 돌고는 인기 공대나 생기가 공자지 저 친구를 해야지 말아야 돼. 대기는 오 일단 저 아니면 저를 해서 오 돈이 있으나 생기 들고 맞아봐 하고 그래 같이 그 생기 맞아봐 하고는 내가 그 코안데 역도 그러면 나도 맞아 역도 그러면 나한테 맞아 나도 맞아 묘모가 시켜요 말이 나한테 이제 키워 말이 대 마시는 때 이거 안 나오고 무슨 먹고요. 오, 이때는 되는 거 없지. 되는 나고 따왔더니 돈이 인기 속에 들어가지. 대리들이 왔다 제 말에 듣는 저렇게 되는 게 올라 배치다가.
So the other day we have talked about the pure view and the pure view within Buddhism, and we come to the pure view that is we must understand the fruition of the view, which is the union of emptiness and compassion. That fruition determines whether or not the pure is correct. So these two must be a union, emptiness and compassion. If they do not come together, then also it will not be beneficial. So for example, if some other religions may understand emptiness, they may understand that the self does not really exist. They may understand that point, so the emptiness aspect they may have understood, but that alone will not be of much benefit. Still, one has not liberated the afflictive emotions within, and for as long as we have not eliminated the afflictive emotions and self-grasping, we will never be liberated from samsara. And so then one must come to the conclusion, I must also cultivate compassion. It is very necessary. Today we don't have so much time to go into great detail of that, but so when one is a person who has given rise to great compassion, then because either in this lifetime we cultivate emptiness or compassion, eventually in future lifetimes we will enter the Buddhist view as a result of that. But only in this lifetime, if one cultivates both, the union of emptiness and compassion, only then one can attain enlightenment within a single lifetime. If one does not cultivate that union of emptiness and compassion, one cannot attain enlightenment in a single lifetime. So that union is symbolized by the Vajra and the bell. And in the secret mantra there is another sign, another symbol, and that is the bow and the arrow. Also they come together. If we just look at it externally as a symbol, then we may wonder why does someone is depicted holding a bow and the arrow that's meant for killing beings, killing animals. What's the benefit of that? So that's just the external meaning. When one has not understood the external symbol, if one has not understood the internal meaning. So what it really refers to, one must understand the meaning. The arrow refers to the compassion, and the bow refers to the emptiness aspect. And they must be a union, because without the bow, you cannot throw the arrow far. You maybe can poke someone very close by, but you cannot really. It's not really useful. And if you have not the other one, if you just have the bow and you don't have the arrow, then you can just carry the bow on your back, but you can't really throw any arrows. So it is also of not much benefit. So they must come together, and when they come together, then they can perform a certain function. So that is how it is in the secret mantra. There is many symbols and signs, but we must understand the meaning of them. We necessarily must understand the meaning, but understanding the meaning, we also must then engage in practice. Just understanding the meaning alone will not do. We also must know how to engage in practice. So through one's own intelligence or wisdom. So we first must gain an understanding of the meaning, and once we have gained an understanding, we must gain experience through practice within our mind. We must apply that to our mind. And then we cultivate wisdom, the understanding of emptiness. And this wisdom is in a union with great compassion. And through that, when we have cultivated this union, we will be able to eliminate the afflictive emotions. For example, when great strong anger arises, then we will know how to eliminate the anger through compassion. So it is important to understand the meaning of these signs and symbols. For example, the bow and the arrow. If we understand its meaning, then a sign of that is that we will eliminate our afflictive emotions. So the symbol is the bow and the arrow, and then the meaning is the union of emptiness and compassion, and then the sign is that we have eliminated the afflictive emotions. So if we do not realize that, if we don't understand the necessity for that union of emptiness and compassion, for example, if one only cultivates compassion, and you think about all the infinite, countless sentient beings in the three realms of samsara, which is so vast, and it seems that you will never be able to liberate them. And you may wonder, how and when will I be liberating those sentient beings? There's endless sentient beings, embodied and disembodied. And when one thinks about that, one may become exhausted due to one's great compassion. And some people even go crazy from that. And so when one has cultivated such compassion, one also must understand the empty nature. Although there are infinite, countless sentient beings, they lack any true existence. So again, in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it is said, all suffering without exception comes from wishing for one's own happiness. The Buddha had realized that the root of all suffering is the self-grasping mind, and the self actually is emptiness. So there is no self that actually exists. If we give rise to great love and compassion for sentient beings, then the self-grasping mind will diminish, and one will be freed from sorrow. And then it is just like an ice block melting. For example, even if there were millions of ice blocks, one day the sun rises, the ice blocks will melt. That is when one realizes that all phenomena of samsara and nirvana lack any inherent true existence. They just temporarily appear like an illusion. So when we engage in practice, we must receive instructions and empowerment and so forth, but then practice itself is essential. As we have seen in the example of Milarepa, Milarepa has dedicated his entire life to the meditation on this union of emptiness and compassion. One day his sister Petra came to see him, and she said, all the other lamas accomplish the benefit of sentient beings, they give empowerments, they give teachings, and you are just sitting in your cave and you're not benefiting sentient beings. Your dharma your dharma practice is not good. And then Milarepa said, this is not true. It is true that we do need empowerment and instructions, but in order to find liberation, in order to truly benefit sentient beings, we must cultivate emptiness and compassion. So meditation is the greatest benefit for sentient beings, to liberate sentient beings. So it is important, therefore, that we also engage in practice, understanding the union of emptiness and compassion. So if we understand emptiness, then we understand that all sentient beings, although they experience great suffering, are empty in self-nature. They lack any true existence. And some people have an understanding of that, but then still they cannot let go, they cannot release the grasping at the thoughts that appear within their mind. So if we cannot release this grasping, we will not release the self-grasping mind. And if the self-grasping mind is not eliminated, we cannot eliminate the afflictive emotions. And then we will be mistaken on our path. So the authentic pure Buddhist view is the union of emptiness and compassion. That is the true or the valid view that is even accepted by the scientists.
칭칭 올고지고 버려야지. 그 사진 통에 나한테 봤을 때는 나 사진 취향난지. 이거 좋았대. 대기지 받쳐 그때라다 뭐라도 잡지. 나도 이거를 주 신빙을 놓지 버려. 근데 당고 사정도 생기고. 생기는 필요성을 대로 시작을 처네. 그래 인빙을 놓지 상계를 해. 상계라. 가시 상계지와 직접 내발 차로 요래서 잘못해 말해. 상계 꽃성 거는 된다고 요래. 주가 남파다 유성 상계 담지 통로 체발을 이와 직접에 떨어뜨리면 요 말이. 다다라는 세번대로 본이 담지그 오사가 이시 대당 유성 상계 라마나 신 상계에서 저것도 남절라 좀 그래서 오서 대도 톡 죽거든요. 남파다를 그래서 이제 상계 담지 상계 찔러 상계 담지 참고요 봐. 상계 찔러서 상계 담지를 잡아. 남시에는 특기서 보고 동화다. 남편 그참 죽고 잡대. 죽고 노지 전 남바다고 잡대 그래. 지 동바 동장 많이 봐. 그때 제와 친구들이요. 제와 친구들이 저기 우리 저렇게 남카에 야들다 좁았다. 라니를 롱크 자통다 그래. 근데 답고 생각하면 저 저기요 그래. 어찌 정신이지? 제가 좀 원인데 일이 피해는 다 저러서 왔다가 그러나 며칠 찍었더니 무슨 상기에 듣고요. 맞아 그 새끼로 상기에도 인생이 가리는 맞아 자꾸 뚫거려 고가대. 로아르도 뚫고 거기요. 스키가 가려고 해. 뚫고 가려 그래. 이 세 대식 누구미 저기 좀에서 대식 누구미 찍자고 말아. 대식 명분은 로아 용을 잡고 나 도민도 사제라고 타게 잡아내. 근데 나보다 되게 적게 새끼 담지에서 사제에 있는 거요. 대는 좀 뚫고 가려. 다다 내가 성질이다고 차를 누이지. 나는 내당 너무 못 간 거. 내당 너무 와서 저쪽서는 대식 좀 먹고 돌아가야 요 말이. 참고 사제를 여쭤보고 시네. 상마를. 다 미지오래. 미는 사제 미는 다뭐 상하데 몇째 찔라. 맞고 있지. 내가 롱도도 보고 째라는 좀 바도를 하고 죽고 때문에 롱크시 그런가 성장이 오고 시네. 다 째라고 보고 그래. 하고 너.
So when we practice the creation stage, we must first receive empowerment. And Lord Chikden Sungen has said, had called it the empowerment, the ripening empowerment. So it is called the ripening empowerment. Even though there may be hundreds and thousands of empowerments, they all are ripening empowerments. And what is it that we ripen? We ripen the immature mind stream of sentient beings. What is ripened is the Buddha nature, the potential for Buddhahood that is inherent within the mind streams of all sentient beings. Just temporarily, depending on the self-grasping mind, samsara has come into existence. But if we separate from the self-grasping mind, then the primordial Buddha that is inherent within our mind stream will ripen, it will reveal itself. So this nature pervades all sentient beings, and the empowerment is the method to ripen, to reveal this nature. During the empowerment, we are introduced to this nature. We say your mind only temporarily is under the sway of self-grasping, but if you give rise to bodhicitta, then you will attain enlightenment. So this is what we are introduced to. And after receiving the ripening empowerment, we then receive the liberating instructions. In the liberating instructions, we receive the graduated stages of the path on how we then, through our practice, ripen our mind stream. And then we engage in the deity practice. I saw one time in a text, Yeshe Tsogyal was asking Guru Rinpoche, there are so many deities, where did they all come from? And Guru Rinpoche replied, all the deities have arisen from bodhicitta. So the essence of all the deities is bodhicitta. So where does bodhicitta come from? It comes from the Buddha. And where do the Buddhas come from? They come from sentient beings. So the Buddha Shakyamuni, in a previous lifetime, when he was a poor beggar's son, he encountered the previous Buddha, and he was overjoyed and had great devotion. And he made a prayer. He prayed to this Buddha and said, "May I become just like you." So he made this prayer to the Tathagata. And the Buddha replied, "If you want to become just like me, you have to cultivate the altruistic mind. You have to cultivate bodhicitta." So then he understood that through his wisdom that it is this altruistic mind, bodhicitta, which will lead to enlightenment. And then the Buddha cultivated bodhicitta and as a result attained enlightenment. And some people think that once one has attained enlightenment, one will just disappear, one just will go out of existence. But that is not true. Once one attains enlightenment, one will acquire the qualities of the three kayas of the Buddha. The first one is the Dharmakaya, which is like space. It is referring to the inseparable mind, wisdom mind of all the Buddhas of the three times. There is not the slightest distinction between the minds of all the Buddhas of the three times. So those who have realized the nature of their mind, we see that it is just this luminous primordial awareness, which is the enlightened mind of all the Buddhas. Lord Chikden Thumgen also has said, "I am a yogi who realizes my own mind, the mind of the Guru, and the mind of the Buddhas to be one." So this mind is the Dharmakaya that abides like the expanse of space. That is the wisdom mind of all the Buddhas of the three times. And although they are infinite, they are contained within a single Buddha. This single wisdom mind of the Buddhas pervades all the reaches of space. As Lord Chikden Thumgen also has said, this Dharmakaya of Vajradhara pervades all the reaches of space. There is not a single place where it doesn't reach. So that is the nature, the essence of emptiness. But then it is not just emptiness, it is not just nothingness. Also, this emptiness is pervaded by great love. And through that, then, within the sky of the Dharmakaya appear the rainbows and the clouds. These are just like the Sambhogakaya manifestations. They appear like the rainbows in the skies. They establish the Pure Lands. So if one understands that, then one engages in practice, one internalizes these practices, and one supplicates. And then one has the opportunity to attain enlightenment within a single lifetime. So we actually can attain enlightenment within a single lifetime. And the reason for that is that all sentient beings, all of us, actually are Nirmanakaya emanations. There are no separate sentient beings somewhere. And how is that? It is because all sentient beings are endowed with Buddha nature. Whether they have a body or they don't have a body, there's not a single sentient being that does not possess Buddha nature. So the Buddha had resolved and realized that all sentient beings are pervaded by this essence of enlightenment. So that is a special feature of the Buddhist view that says that all sentient beings are endowed with Buddha nature. And how are we Nirmanakaya manifestations? Sentient beings only temporarily suffer within samsara due to their temporary afflictive emotions. But once those afflictive emotions come to an end, Buddha nature has never changed. It has never gone out of existence. It will reveal itself, and we will transform to be Buddhas. So through the secret mantra, we ripen. We may ripen within a single lifetime. So from the perspective of the secret mantra, we all are Nirmanakaya manifestations. And then if we engage in the creation stage practice, the deity practice, ideally, depending on this practice, we will attain enlightenment in the first Bardo, in the Dharmakaya, or we will attain enlightenment in the Sambhogakaya after death, and we will establish a pure land.
이리들라 보면 대다를 론주 조국의 시간 상식 내던 급자 용진이 이시고 요리 대신에 오 사족 선별하고 사제다 답고 시간 상식 매가도 또 마고 같더니 무도 손짓을 봐 저것들이 다 꼬드잡을 줄빈다고 야남고 타다 양바 두호와 마가고 봐도 유면 제바 됐다고 내기는 또 강이 정말이 사족스레 정말이 대다고 일을 제네 다른 거다 소에 걸라서 뭐 대다고 톱는 대고 뭐리 대원나 대라 원자는 또 강자게 되는데 보면 사이는 뒤에다가 렉좀 그거 무슨 함을 공크의 강자한 게 생긴 탐색의 통감 제치대 이전에 누구야 내 당시로 대라디 누가 지금 그 지나나 송들의 이제 부도 쪽에 양성 대등 탐을 지는 양도 공감해
분석 참기
부도 쪽에 저기는 그래 대는 대송으로 나시 라포를 거치 상하 제를 벗어서 이제 무슨 느끼기가 내려오시고 이제 느끼기가 산노 이제 느끼고 말에 사야 장배 말에 장배 장이 시거들다 아무리 다 시기 올 때서 나년들 사강이다나 가봐 땅이라도 저 레일랩 송세 저런 건 남도세 저 레일랩 사더니 그러나 우리 연도로 로고 숍이랑 연도터나 로 사야 저걸 로고도 없으시 다들이 내 고소는 왜 그렇게 연반이야 뭐 걔도 사야 장매 봐도 이제 르지지 뒤에라 지와 야송 장매 봐 요래데 같이 장만아 뭐지 빨리
리럽 야송이 리럽 야
르지를 지와 야 장매 봐요 말이 대체 말이 장성 최종화 가도 장중이 오면 장미 와서 장미 이제 뛰어먹고 바로는送걸 봐. 이 동까지 시고지 장가시고 말해. 이 동무지 때다면 막나요. 그렇게 봐 시고래. 아무래. 성우지 뛸 같이 장면 용왕을 저거 했지. 마음이 생기게 ጭቅ 차이잖아. 느끼기가 상황 되시고래. 르들은 또 이게 같이 오나 용왕마들 하고 매나 랑을 용왕마 상황 시. 르드 선우지 이게 빼. 나기 생긴 그 랑그 셈 내려 내라 나지다 유모가 거기서 장미 봐요네요. 그래놓고 오슬로도 좀이 장식이 올라. 이 송도 무슨 게 장미가 시기오래. 같이 만나 나지 좀 봐야지. 도착했다 또 먹고 참았지 봐야지. 맞게 타도 뭐마 뭐저는 유모가 생기 저거 유모가 띵 그때시고 대시라 오 서로 이렇게 르지 빼래지 나비 생기랑 생기도 빼래서 근데 저는 나와서 다 했으니 내로 또나 이 생기 당시 이쪽에 맞지 시네 근데 상하지는 뭐나 근데 서로 이렇게 자리에 강시 봐지 동안 안에 저 봐. 용왕까지 감내는 용왕까지 좁거리. 나서 좁거리. 랑기가 저기요리. 남편 새끼 너무 많아. 다는 이 시간에 전적으로리. 사촌생들은 이 시간에 전적으로리. 나디들이나 다 뭐로가 조금 전적으로리. 노차를 세나 좀 다 이모 좁으라 하고 통화. 그리고 다 마다가 제발에 자세라니 소리만 되는 좀 봐. 오, 인fin이 생각 나 진짜 로니 제발 로보사지 인fin 생의 정세. 너무나 나게 돌린 정세. 지책대가 싫었더니 근데 이제 시사로 대시사로 오, 다 상속 생각을 되나? 有的得到了多句，刚出生一堂去，那个就可能就这个而已，把它保险了。这东西呢，这里上嘛，对也看看不了来去，对吧？哪看不了来去。
So then also we must understand the reality or the qualities of these Amboa Kaya emanations and the Pure Lands when we engage in the in the creation stage practice. So we must understand that all of these Amboa Kaya emanations, the deities, are the embodiment of bodhicitta. And through the quality of bodhicitta, these deities and the Pure Lands are established effortlessly, spontaneously. They are free from any boundary, any grasping. They are all good space. So the nature of samsara and nirvana is a single ground, as we have said. But if we give rise to a bodhicitta, then we will cultivate these pure lands. And when we meditate on the form of the deity, there is the person who meditates, and then there is the deity that we meditate, that we cultivate, and we must understand the qualities of this deity and the pure lands. So the person who meditates must understand that the sense sources, aggregates, and elements of all sentient beings are pure from the beginning. One must understand the single ground of the entire universe and all the sentient beings contained. And so in the Drikontaku lineage there are within the great songs the 18 perfections, and in these songs it says you must understand everything that appears and exists to be the divine form of the deity. That is the perfected completion stage of secret mantra. So when we understand the nature of whatever appears and exists, the universe and all the sentient beings, we see that they are singular in nature. For example, the external universe, we say that there are infinite universes. There is millions of world systems. The scientists in America also know that. I have heard last year there was some communication between the Earth and another planet. It was sort of like one was calling to another planet, and then an answer came back. So I don't know if that is really true, but we see how fast the light can travel to this other planet, and a response can come back. So in brief, although we cannot give it a number, it is said that there is 100 Mount Meru world systems, but there is infinite of them. So we can actually not say that there is a certain number, but there is infinite universes and world systems. And although they are infinite, they all consist of the same material. All the external universes consist of the 5 elements. And one's own body consists of the 5 elements. And then there is the sentient beings within this universe, all these universes, the infinite sentient beings. And although they are infinite and countless, they have a single ground. So in this way, one must understand the nature of the external universe and the internal sentient beings. The external universe, no matter how vast it may be, consists of the 5 elements. And one's own body consists of the 5 elements. Therefore, one's own body is the microcosm of the infinite external universe. And then the internal sentient beings, although they may be infinite and countless, there is one self-grasping and afflictive emotions. They are singular in nature. So those of you who have studied the 4 thoughts that turn the mind know the infinite numbers of sentient beings, especially in the lower realms, who lack merit. However, their afflictive emotions coming from self-grasping, attachment, aversion, ignorance, jealousy, pride, the 5 poisons, they are exactly the same. So the afflictive emotion of a little insect and the afflictive emotion of any other sentient being is exactly the same. This we must understand. So we must understand our own body to be the microcosm of the external universe, and the inner mind to be the microcosm of all the minds of sentient beings. So the entire universe and sentient beings, therefore, are contained within a single person. So when one realizes the nature of mind, one will realize this single ground of all sentient beings. With that understanding, we must engage in the practice, the meditation of the creation stage. And so how we practice that is that we perceive the external universe that consists of the 5 elements as a celestial palace. These 5 elements in reality are Nirmanakaya manifestations. They are Buddha manifestations. They are called the myriad Nirmanakaya. They naturally appear. And then the internal afflictive emotions, the 5 afflictive emotions of sentient beings, when they are purified, they transform into the 5 wisdoms. That is, if we give rise to bodhicitta, the afflictive emotions transform into wisdom. If we cling to the self, then the afflictive emotions will lead to rebirth in the 6 realms of samsara. For example, from attachment comes stinginess, and that creates the realms within samsara. So it comes down to whether or not we have realized the purity. So basically, what we need to understand are these 2 sentences in the 37 Bodhisattva practices. All suffering without exception comes from wishing for one's own happiness. The perfect Buddhas arise from the altruistic mind. So if you just understand these 2 sentences, you have understood the basis of both samsara and nirvana. If you give rise to bodhicitta, you will acquire all enlightened qualities. Then you will see all sentient beings in the divine form of the deity. So that is the understanding of the secret mantra. We perceive everything that appears and exists to be the deity and the celestial palace. So regarding the creation stage, there is 4 levels of creation stage, and they relate to the way in which we take rebirth in any of the 6 realms of samsara. So they are relating to the way in which we form another body. As Lord Jigten Sumgön has said, we are wandering, what is wandering within the ocean of samsara is the body that has engaged in negative karmas. So what is wandering is the body. The body is established through our conceptuality, the thoughts. Milarepa had said, the characteristics of samsara are free from any roots or basis, and if you were to apprehend a basis, it would come down to a thought, to concepts. Like just before we came here, we were in Philadelphia in a museum where they displayed a science museum, and they showed how a child was born. So we could actually we could see how that evolves. But anyways, when we practice creation stage, that relates just to that. It relates to the way in which we take rebirth. And there is 4 different ways in which we take rebirth as sentient beings. Either in a womb, or in an egg, or through heat and moisture, or through miraculous birth. And depending on these 4 types of birth, there's 4 different types of creation stage. So for as long as we have not eliminated self-grasping, we will continue to take birth within samsara. The root or basis of that is the thoughts, our grasping at conceptuality. Due to these thoughts, we engage in action, and these actions form habitual patterns or propensities, and afflictive emotions continue to arise. Due to these afflictive emotions, they determine in which particular realm we will take rebirth. So that relates to the creation stage practice, where we visualize gradually the seed syllable, the implements, until we finally see the entire deity. So the creation stage practice purifies the propensities of the birth stage. So when we engage in the creation stage practice, the essential point is not to separate from bodhicitta, that is a union of wisdom and compassion, and to sustain mindfulness as we engage in this practice. So if one engages in such practice and then is about to take rebirth, then one will see one's parents to be in the pure form of the deity. One will see seed syllables and so forth, and take a fine rebirth. So but in brief, the purpose of the creation stage practice is to purify the propensities of the birth.
There 때는 나타나니 걔는 무슨 공부 값들이 통한 동장이래. 동장 소바와 주도 사다마 소바와 주도 항지 유사마 탑들더니 다당 예당 콘데기 주통자를 말씀을 정부요래. 제 강자장 콘데기 주통이 이제 내말 맞아 봐서 시고 내말 맞아 봐. 얘는 다다다 무슨 내말 맞아 때 무슨 나무 취대다 tam시 진안에 나무 취 tam시 랑이게 semter 좋아. 대신에 이 semter 때 받다 tam시 다다다가 말아를 지비요래. 다사나 다와시는 이제는 마다가 직장들과 참제 답바 하고 요래 때는 느끼 같이 막는 느끼 깨는 일들이 람도 야에가 lại tổ tạo cái thì cảm giác sinh như thế nào khó tạo cái gì thì cái hỗ trợ cái thì cảm giác sinh như nào thì cái hỗ trợ cái đó thì cũng là thì cái tam mà làm gì như thế thì công việc rồi thì nhỏ sẽ vào đó như thế vậy lắm cái công việc làm là các cái vậy cho nên cái công việc làm làm cái phần này ba cái thằng chỉ cái là tập bài ba thì xin đi mấy cái này 남이 있잖아요. 랑지 보고 나와서 가까마지 달아서 밤에는 가까운 저번에 밤에는 나공성 여러분이 봐도 똥도 보고래. 대대들이 말하기 스트롱으로 여러분이 봐도 그래서
So So when we engage in the creation stage practice, we first purify into emptiness through the mantra Om Svabhava Shuddhadharva Sama Svabhava Shuddhoham. And then we give rise to the creation stage. So first we understand the nature of self and others, of all the phenomena within samsara and nirvana, and we engage in the creation stage practice through 3 levels or stages. So first we must understand that everything that appears and exists lacks any true existence from its own side. This we must understand. So then, although phenomena appear to us, there are manifestations. We understand that they were created by the mind, and that mind lacks any true existence. So from an ordinary perspective, we grasp at purity and impurity. If one understands the view of secret mantra, one understands that the entire universe and all sentient beings are pure from the very beginning. No matter how vast the external universe may be, it comes down to a single ground. So when you meditate on the creation stage practice, you are the principal deity in the mandala of the celestial palace, and all the sentient beings are the retinue. You then learn to summon up all sentient beings of the 3 worlds within one mandala. This is according to the tradition of the Anuttara Yoga Tantra, the unsurpassed Yoga Tantra. In the 4 classes of Tantra, there are many different ways in which we engage in creation stage practice. But commonly, when we practice the creation stage, we not only perceive ourselves to be pure in nature, but the entire universe and all the sentient beings contained are pure, and we do not grasp at their true reality. So we resolve whatever appears when we engage in practice is the deity. Appearances are the deity, and all sounds are the mantra. So when there is no grasping to appearances, that is the union of appearance and emptiness. And if there is no grasping to sounds, that is the union of sound and emptiness. And then later we will talk about the explanation on the creation stage as was told by Milarepa.
나도 따성을 보내 시켜요. 들으셨어요? 이 자리에 간데 진 오바 나도 하자고 되니 못해 마용으로서 마음을 요래. 그 사적 랑들을 받아 결을 되니 사용을 요래. 별이 자리에 간데 고 비고 거지 사기의 탐색을 또 체험해 봐 이제를. 라미가 체험해 봐 이제를 되니 생기 탐색 동네들 내 이제를 되니 코를 넣다 봐. 동대에다가 종용이 동충종 탐색때 그냥 잡다 점정질 때 팽이 오래 오 대대대 정사 고아서 고요래 고아서 시나 타톡 냐들인데 여러분들 같이 어디 강하고 배를 주로게 소위 tipo gondol ci dai o 말고 소위 tipo gondol 오 나지 봐지요 말고 이거는 마오 내가 나도 저래 딱은 조용히 매모하던 공대나 내가 야 다이고 말이야 나 내가 가면 남보다 유모가 눈이 내당 박차서만 나디가 통하는 요리 디스르더니 나 매나 이해당지에 말을 빠시고 요리 나디 인생이 똑같이 충돌도 오고 양들 이 비용들은 말아야 돼 서로 서로 타지고 뭐 대지셔를 이제는 네가 하고 이제는 네가 하고나 다당날 루시번 만다다요 산이 좀 시선해요 반도에 다들 내리 박차 그러면 다다 내리 뭐 강사지 내리 박차 때도 내가 얘도 유모가 내가 동에 다다리 가차 왔더니 유모가라는 거 좋고 요거요 야 플라이스나 끼는 데로나 당고 다 요나 다이면 루시들 플라이스나 탭소나 라지당 라지는 이좀 내가 철철 받다가 롱고로 사자 듣고 요래 그래서 그냥 박차탐지 사고 무수들을 쌓는 동계를 대다 법치고 이래야지.
And so also then when we visualize the palace, the deity and the retinue, also in that there is the symbol, the meaning and the sign. So for example, we visualize the mandala or the palace, there's many elements like the 4 gates and many other like elements of the palace, the different like levels of the palace. And for example, the 4 gates may appear as the 4 gates, and it refers to the 4 immeasurables of the Buddhas, due to which they accomplish the benefit of beings, and they eliminate their sufferings through the 4 enlightened activities and liberate them from samsara. So that is what is symbolized, for example, with the 4 gates. And then there is many other fine details, many elements in the visualization. It's very beneficial if you can study these and gain an understanding. If you just understand them, it is sufficient. If you understand the meaning, then later when you actually engage in practice, then you only focus on the creation stage, or even only on the seed syllable. If you just focus on the seed syllable, in that moment there is no self. As before, there is constantly the notion of the I am. But when you think of a blazing hung syllable, in that moment there is no self. And all the afflictive emotions, thoughts, sufferings, karmas, and propensities, they all abide within self-grasping. So if we realize that there is no self, if there is no self, when we focus on the seed syllable, then also there is no other. Then we do not grasp at the duality of self and other. This is what we must actualize when we practice. Later in the afternoon, we will talk about the benefits that Milarepa had mentioned, the benefits of creation stage practice. It is important that we understand of the great powers, the great force of the creation stage practice. So now we are holding on to our body. We cling to the body. If you cling to your body after you have died, you go on to the Bardo state, then still you will have the imprint of your body in your minds, and they will arise. They will again, so the propensity of your body again will appear within the Bardo. And all the karmas that you have accumulated with this body will appear in the form of propensities. And along with that appear the habituated afflictive emotions. Just the suffering we will experience then is much worse than it is now. So naturally, with this clinging to the body arise the afflictive emotions in the Bardo state. If we have habituated the clear visualization of the deity, then there is no self. Then we become non-dual with the Yidam deity. It is just like water pouring into water. And then we may attain enlightenment in the Sambhogakaya state after death. So in that way, the physical propensities have transformed into the deity. So we must understand the great powers of the secret mantra.
가시에다 이게 주로 라면을 타당 세가 나서 막 나서 내가 딱 요래. 걔들과 딱이제 나기 이제 오나 땅 특별히 좋나 보구나. 그 말은 누가 땅을 요구 사람들이 이거 누가 땅을 내놔 주 야자자 누가 연거래. 노빠지 좀 폭 강을 해주나. 그러게 열레니다 되게 그냥 뭐 레지를 레는 걸 내려오나. 이 대에 따라서 뛰는 오, 이 농백단 주보지 뛰면은 누가 땅 송선 되고 레니 되려면 가야 계속 말해. 대신아. 때다를 좀 남도를 지금이 사고선 주디 나기니 미로를 이로를 그 강을 계속 말해. 나기도 방문들은 근데 지금 남방으로 작성 비이 온 거라. 그때다 신사 끼는 꽤 평균으로 내려서 봐. 꽤. 남방은 비이 되는 거 좀 딱딱딱한데 좋아. 만불 정도 되나. 어때 이거 말라. 필수 다방 다음에는 나오는 비도 올라. 그래서 그 말은 누가 땅을 우선 나이 올라와. 그리고 오픈은 나자니 올라와. 맞아서 나 욕소세 가라고 내 올라와. 그걸 나자서 방나야. 주라는 나면 나 꼭도 존나 관내 그 나발 가다잖아. 자살고 말라. 우리 전에 꼭 치고 이 동시나 여러분 동시 봤다고 비용 친구를 해야지. 학생아. 역점 뭐해? 하고 뭐?
그래서 so also in the creation stage practice we understand the symbols and the actual meaning. So when we engage in creation stage practice, there are 3 points. It is the clarity, purity, and firm pride. So first we cultivate clarity, that is the clear visualization of the form of the deity. When the form of the deity appears in your mind, then your mind actually becomes the deity. The mind actually will transform into the deity. And then purity is that the deity appears in various forms with different ornaments and implements and so forth. And then one must not think, well, if I want to become the deity, then I must wear all these jewelry and ornaments. That will not make you become the deity. You must understand the meaning of that. For example, the peaceful deities, they wear crown ornament of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. And then the wrathful deities, they wear a crown ornament with 5 dry skulls. The meaning of that is that the 5 afflictive emotions have been transformed into the 5 wisdoms. So in this way we must recollect the purity of the deity. Whatever appears has an inner meaning. Also when we now visualize the deity and we only visualize the deity, the form of the deity, only that by itself already is very powerful. For example, there's other religions, other traditions where people practice like sorcery or they cast spells and they harm people in any other way. Just to visualize the deity in that context is very powerful, because if you visualize the deity, then there is no self. And only when there is the dualistic grasping of self and others, then you can be harmed. Even when there is no one who is harming you, if you think I will be harmed, you will be harmed. And what that comes down to, it comes down to the negative karmas, the obscurations and negativities within the mind stream. So we have accumulated the negative karma already in the past lifetime, and now we encounter a condition that makes this ripen. And then we grasp at the truth of any spirits, evil spirits and so forth, and think they are actually harming us. But if you don't have the negative karma and the obscurations, then no one can affect you. So when you visualize the form of the deity, then there is no self. Then the thought of self and other will just disappear. You will forget about it. And if there is no self, then nothing can harm you, nothing can affect you in any way. It is just like when you are throwing an arrow onto a target. If there's a target, you can hit the target. But if there is no target, then there's nothing to be hit, even if the arrow is thrown. So it is just like when there is no self, your mind is like space. And within space, what is there to hit? There is no target within space. So the creation stage practice is extremely powerful, and it is very beneficial if you understand the meaning of the creation stage.
여름 플라몬드 대다 냠도 마다와다 기치 뭐예요. 근데 여름 사토 사이퍼데 말아 주인이 아시베 나도 마모페 이제 나도 마모 잠브레나 기다리 여름 공 백페베 여름 공 노바도 그걸 공나요 말이에요. 코바요 버까로 사리 빠지잖아요. 야 여름 말때 이제 맞좀 이래서들이 otto torni pedinho para Marte e arte sempre no modo militari salvotana se bata platidana dotana luego na sala se passa o chappiore che tenio mo na to non è un giro non è sempre 그리고 제대로 빼서 미사 들어오래. 그는 종탁때 싸우고 차나. 네 가와도 싸우고 그 지는 뭐 소시생을 접도 하고 요 뒤지서더니 뭐 밤에 뭐 사자 좀 맞대다고 이상 톡 섞어라. 그 데이터 봐야 뭐래. 그래 뭐 제를 받는 거예요. 지는 라이프 지 답과 진짜도 빼사로 되는 남이 뭐제로 달라. 이거 되겠다. 예를 양거랑도 뭐 근데 너가 잘하다 여러 가지로 샘마에 들어가면 있고 뭐 노기로 뭐지 왔다 하는 게 없고 말해 진짜 모르지.
And so then together with the creation stage, the visualization of the deity, also the mantra recitation is important. So first we visualize the deity in the form of the deity. And we can visualize the deity in a gradual way. There is some great benefits when we visualize in a gradual way, because sometimes we have many thoughts that appear. And so when you, for example, have an illness, even the illness can be dispelled through that visualization. So when you have a picture of the Buddha, a Buddha, you place that in front of you and you look at it, and then you close your eyes, and then you visualize from up to down, from the crown protuberance down to the lotus seat, and you try to visualize each detail. And that may even benefit your illness, because your mind will become very clear and you will forget about all the afflictive emotions and the suffering, the negative thoughts. And your mind will become increasingly clear. And then when it becomes very clear, then you understand that this deity that you have visualized is nowhere separate from you. It is established within your own mind. And then you may rest within non-conceptual Mahamudra. So then you will be able to remember at any instant the creation stage of the deity. You will never forget again about the deity. So you recite the visualization over and over again, and you visualize over and over again, free from any distraction, and eventually the mind will become inseparable from the deity. So we can think about the visualization sometimes before, and then we engage in the recitation, and then we visualize like in an instant.
통제도는 말을 시바 언제 내가 비마다 그랬어 제 종아지가 그랬더니 걔는 무거운 거 갖다가 이렇게 깨는 거를 오늘 깨는 것보다 찌꺼래 찌꺼 말해 걔는 이미 뭔가 걔는 깨는 너는 가지고 하나 깨는 거나 또 탐색 와는 또 정말 탐색 가야 계속 양이 성장하도 강이 안 나니까 또 탐색을 하는 거예요. 탐색이 받을 강을 와서 탐색을 그래서 탐색 같네요. 어쩌서 양주도 맞추네. 양주도 맞추다가 탐색해서 뭐 그까지 탐색해야 돼. 이놈 이렇게 방어져. 이 탐색도 뭐 이제는 녹아만 따면 탐색. 사정서도 녹아가면 특히 탐색을 하게 그러고 생구도 다시 이제와 이거 지으려는 거는 다시 냠을 지으려는 거 생구도 다시 이제와 그때는 이도 이제 좀 탐색 때려야 하고 이렇게 상하를 까니 내가 그렇게 봐요 봐. 나바다 굉장히 그렇게 봐요 봐. 냉치고 그래서 중학은 천원도 소장하고 다니나 냉기네요. 그래서 또 뭐하는 거 소장하고 용가하는 거 소가시 받은 이 담배도 따라나 소장하고 다니지 발광이나 이런 거예요. 담배 대례는 뭐 싸워지가 싸워가면 콘데미가 대표적으로 제가 주님을 마시는 거예요. 통상을 내가 하고 콘데미가 솔직히 지성에서 딱 떠서 뭐는 딱 바꿔서 폐가에 버리지 가만 저거를 알고 나비 콘데 탐치 이제 남 인제르지 이제 남 이상 되는 자성성 샌들이 콘데 탐치 샌들 내가 남 이상 되는 이제 다 이제 내가 거와 동행이 잡고 이게 거보다 가게 꺾은 게 있는데 그래서 너무 좋다 너무 좋네요 다만 타고 약간 내가 아니 싸움하고 많이 좋아할 거고 대다오도 보니까 서장하고 안남는 게 결혼하고 또 감책 특색을 넣는 똑같아서 감책하고 그래.
So this morning I shared with you whatever I knew about the creation stage practice to the best of my ability. And so when we engage in creation stage practice, in the beginning we must have the foundation, which is to understand that everything that appears and exists is not established, does not exist inherently from the very beginning. Therefore, everything just temporarily appears like an illusion. So in order to purify the grasping to a reality, a concrete reality, we practice the creation stage. So then one may ask, is this the only thing that we need to practice? This also must be answered with no. So when we engage in meditation practice, such as the creation stage practice, or whatever practice we engage in, the samaya is essential. Also the empowerment relies on the samaya. So whatever practice of the pratimoksha, bodhisattva, or vajrayana vehicles we engage in, we must observe the samaya. It all comes down to the commitment. So it is that in the context of the empowerment, the samaya is the life force of the empowerment. In the context of the pratimoksha vehicle, we first take refuge into the 3 jewels, and then we must observe precepts. The precept of that is to abandon any harm towards sentient beings entirely. And then in the Bodhisattva vehicle, we accomplish the welfare of sentient beings. In our mind, we must exchange self with others, and in our activities, we equalize self with others. We benefit as sentient beings, having given rise to the altruistic mind. That is the commitment in the context of Bodhisattva vehicle. And then in the secret mantra, the Vajrayana vehicle, we sustain mindful awareness, heedfulness, and we at the same time apprehend the mind of love and compassion. So this samayas, whatever one practices, whatever practice one engages in, is like the string that keeps the mala beads together. So whatever practice we engage in, of pratimoksha, bodhisattva, or vajrayana vehicle, we need the commitment, the samaya, the vow. And so if one engages in any of these practices, not observing the samaya, then even if one practices the pratimoksha, bodhisattva, or vajrayana vehicles, one will have no fruition. So we must in the beginning understand that samaya. So the root of the samaya comes down to the understanding that whatever appears and exists, samsara and nirvana, has a single ground, a single life force. That is the mind. It is Buddha nature. So one is introduced to the truth of Dharmadhatu, or the ultimate truth. Both samsara and nirvana have a single life force. We always read the Samantabhadra prayer. It is very beneficial if you read it. And there it says, everything, appearance and existence, has a single ground, yet two paths and two fruitions. That single ground is the mind itself. And then there is two paths and two fruitions. One path is to cherish the self, which will lead to the fruition of wandering in the ocean of samsaric suffering. And then the other path is the altruistic mind. And from the altruistic mind, the fruition is the acquiring of the qualities of the three kayas of the Buddha. It is just like a tree. The root of the tree is planted into the ground, and upwards are all the branches and the leaves. So the upper parts of the tree represent the temporary higher realms and ultimately the achievement of enlightenment, and the root down refers to the rebirth in the lower existences of karma. So whatever practice one engages in, pratimoksha, bodhisattva, or vajrayana vehicle, we must understand the samaya to be essential, to be the very life force of all practices.
이서는 너무 럽자가 짱이 나왔어요. 럽자가 나를 봤을 때 가면서 사진 좀 뒤에 빼져 봤는데 호마 사족표도 톡지바데 됐으면 사제 탐색을 사족표도 톡지바데 상기를 사족표도 톡지바데 강리 사진 좀 뒤에 따고지와 남자 마다가 남자 이니까 가면서 톡다 이거 가래라 버려 생기를 들으시고 생기를 피고 가래도 피고 쇠와 피고 그래서 쇠와 되는 사진 좀 이제 되고 생기 상태를 받아 사진 좀 이제 굉장히 꽤나 굉장히 이해되더라 사고 홀로도 깨놓고 가봐도 사진도 꽤상을 야요 계산 얘네들은 막 공부를 파송을 하는 안 돼. 오, 나가라 봐도 기본 말이 사진을 찍어서 만원 받으면 센티미터에서 좀 하리고 봐. 리더를 강수모를 고독 센티미터 관계라 마다 보이는 것이 그렇지. 이것을 마치를 벌 마치 벌 가서 저렇게 왔다는 거. 빌리가 사고지라. 예. 아니나 마치를 그렇게요. 그때 내가 세디 이거 보도 그냥 다 되게 버스는 거를 맞으면 한지에 내가 탑톱을 동네에 딱 데려서는 거를 됐다고 제가 친구 됐다고 했지 산지에 톡 주거든요. 로커다 그렇게 되게 보여요. 现在我说这个让中巴过的事，这个很努力。我说什么呢？我说怎么到怎么样啊？사실 그거를 또 거래 왜도 또 거래 동쪽과 차례 그냥 마을을 따와서 뒤에서는 사지가 제대로 떼와서 요가 뛰네 그래서 당시 사지를 봐야 나고 생긴 게 쏘아 맞았나요 떼와요 그래서 그래서 뿌그라고 쳐봐 내가 마치 뿌그를 떼와요 떼을 것 같아 그리고 또 따박하다 잡아도 특히 옆으로 뿌그를 카오나 아마 오마 카는 거 우요래 뿌그를 카면 아마 떼하고 그거를 막 떼서 그리고 또 대파가 갑자기 가다 특히 옆으로 특히 탐색 떼야 양지를 그래서 그 샤기 동시바 또 인기만 보고 샤기가 또 떼야 봐 대시 거래
So when we accomplish the deity, then we also must observe the Samayam. And also the Buddha himself first has given rise to precious bodhicitta, and all the Buddhas of the 3 times having given rise to precious bodhicitta have attained enlightenment. So what is that precious bodhicitta? The Buddha has taken 500 pure and 500 impure incarnations, and he has accumulated merit throughout 3 infinite aeons. What has he accumulated? He has given rise to the wish to benefit sentient beings. And how are they benefited? They are benefited through a mind of love. So what the Buddha has accomplished and accumulated was a mind of love for all sentient beings. Such was the expanse of the Buddha's compassion. And the embodiment of this compassion, we say, is Chenrezig, 1,000-armed and 1,000-eyed Chenrezig. We say your 1,000 arms are the 1,000 Chakravartin kings, your 1,000 eyes are the 1,000 Buddhas of this fortunate aeon. So what that refers to is not actual physical hands, but it refers to his ability to pervade all mother sentient beings and to have love for all sentient beings, just like a mother has love for her child. So he's able to give rise to this all-pervasive love for all beings. So when a mother loves her child, then she will do anything to dispel the suffering of the child, of hunger, thirst, and so forth. And in the same way, the Buddha cares for all sentient beings in that way. So the Buddha has great love for all sentient beings. The mind of the Buddha is the Dharmakaya, and from the Dharmakaya arise the Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya manifestations. The guide along the path of the 3 jewels is the Sangha. So in terms of the 3 jewels, the 3 kayas, the Buddha's mind is the Dharmakaya, the Buddha's speech the Sambhogakaya, and then the Sangha is the Nirmanakaya. In the secret mantra, we practice also the 3 roots. So through the power of the love of the Buddha for all sentient beings, the deities have appeared. They all are emanations of a Buddha. They are Buddha emanations. And even if we do not supplicate them, they still have great love for all sentient beings. And it's just like even if the child has no feeling, the mother still loves the child. And if a person actually supplicates them, then the blessings will be very close. But if it is just like a mother and her child, if the child has an open mouth, then the mother can feed the child. But if the child has no open mouth, then even the mother can feed the child. It's of no benefit. So in the same way, we must open through our mind of faith and devotion and the Samayam. And so the Buddha has given rise to that love for all sentient beings. And that love is the nature of the deity. That point must be understood.
不说成了잡成거였나 람모디 보소는 정원은 잡는 거 거죠. 바로 센티 바디나 무슨 보소는 잡서 손을 잡아 타는데 쥐. 쥐가 강해. 아주 쓰는 것이 그랬더라. 네. 바디 무슨 잡지 센티 바디. 센티는 사소거 센티 바디. 얘는 또 잡서 손이 정대 잡서 손을 센티가 마성을 센티가 제가 잘해요 있잖아. 오, 그래서 르보치가 추마들이나 르보치가 또 상태 갖다 갈려요. 얘는 추마를 몇 아니 타바치를 유나 타바치를 유는 추마하지. 다 단체를 유는 걔가 동상도 단체가 고도고 단체 이거래. 동상도 단체에 이제 사실 생기요. 예식이 맞지. 단체 따라서 말해 생겨. 제가 고도고 단체에 고도고 단체 상기 용의를 쓰니 도대기 차고 다 되는 잡수 송송의 샘기 받는데 지금 주막을 용하는 이유는 다 당보도 신경 못 생각도 많이 냠데 고도 단체 생기게 그 사제다 서바쪽밖에 그 사제를 제가 차는 거죠. 주말은 너무 되는 거라. 로카이 주말을 똑같이 이어요. 예식 정보를 이번에 고도 사적 생기 담아서 이 사적 생각도 봐. 예를 들면 통화로 해야를 대시고 머리 이 당첨치나 이 매시하는 소리가 되니까 약간 좀 사적 생기고 한다. 사제 당첨을 써왔다면 당첨되는 거예요. 강제는 다홍방호 라진이면 다홍방호고요. 그래서 보면 다홍방호고요. 야, 라가 사다 있으면 내가 차고는 다홍방호 잡히고 사족 생각들이 다 들리는데 있으면 같이 찾고요. 이 동대 신에 대해서 당소 하공 하드에는 같이 결심을 톡톡 내라게 되면 간단 단책 마시가리. 단책 남자 사원직은 요구하면 깨가 되거든요. 내가 톡하고 이걸 세상들이 그 단책 죽어서 납 총화 말이 되고 반장 단책 좀 마시게. 그래서 아마 내가 총총 사용하겠지. 이 세상 단책 못이야. 나도 다 같이 그 라마를 단책 좀 주고 라마를 같이 말이. 얘는 라마지를 대마자 라마지를 옆에 받았거든. 이 라마지 깊이 들리지. 야, 강도도 야세라니 소주면은 장쪽 선발을 똑같다면 선배 말을 이와서 장애를 보지 내보는 이런 야세라니 소주면은 송어라 명식인 돈이 주지 화장이가 탑승고 세기가 탑승고 가래 명식인은 돈이 어디가 여전해 삼재 상대는 이 말이 확받아 랑중지 보고 이 뚱을 먹으면 용기 따와니 보고 말이 항상 랑이 탐기 강의 사자가 해요가 tiêu 이바 좋다 이바 내지 상호터 랑주를 뚱지 보고 이 뚱한 보고가 뭐 감이 좀딱 담아 보고 도요로 그렇게는 뭐 감이 이 가방을 뭐 같은 거라 자 이 코다를 그 코를 정도가 하고 대명들이 소소할 때 얘기 똥통 소득기는 찔리 얘기 똥통을 하는데 봐야지 대시고 답답하잖아 가운데 봐요 자기 장고 이 장고 많이 나라 장고 많이 좀 똑같이 주 이거 세는데 때려지는 lokasi 거예요. lokasi 이거 생각 초라만 될 거예요. 가다 말하는 이거 많이 받잖아. 권 나와는 거 보다 아마 조시에 좀 취대 사제가 세만 대성되는 권까지 되지. 그건 뭐야? 소지성 따오면 무슨 상하 따와하면 느끼 이가 가봐 통을 때는 가다 행신 때부터 가지고 나가서 통 가리 통 동안한테 이 동안은 서로 옆으로 들어가는데 그거 대신에 이 동안만 하고 다 당고 있어도 다 왔는데 근데 이 양을 마도 놓고 서고 똑같은 적고 대적거나 그 나지서 걸고 왔지도 오 그게 이제 생기면 진짜 다 빠래 그게 이제 요한한테 영어를 그 빠래 그 빠르랑 이미 차이가 이거 말이야 남생 기분이 이모만들 사적선들도 힘을 이래 나서 라상 사바 땅마 그 자스만 나하는 그 이거 잡히려 해줄게라 야들 자다고 같이 새끼 자오는 차함을 때들 무슨 양들은 용은 딱 이제 좀 많이 이거 이시에 이게 다 하냐 그래 또 답답성 그거요 답답해 가야 우리들은 라마도 로반이 말해 요리 내가 답답해 너도 떼어야 야 오늘 단적도 떼어야 떼어 가라도 좀더 더 봐라 정말 뽕을 봐라 마땅 더 봐라 떼어야 돼 시청마도 단적도 떼어야 떼어 제목도 단적선데 대신에 오랑 강을 여기 떼어 되는 정도 되니 무슨 사제를 떼어하는 게 와요 떼어하느라고 소리 있잖아 말이에요 떼어지는 말을 밖에 쏘면 이게 통과와 시당이 쏘라 같은 조바봉 그래서 세요 그 떼어하지 마땅한 송 대신에 그 답답을 따와시에 따로 답답때 이 떼어하지 따시 모이면 강의식으로 지금 시라도 주시 봐요 그랬더니 나중에 손들면 동생이 있었다고 네, 손도 서독과 대, 또 여도 주인당 시비지 말이에요. 이제 주인시 요번 때와 요번 손당 마음도 당신 저거요. 근데 이나도 당신 마음이 좀 그래. 마도 따고 또 로아시 말이야. 막합래도 마음도 그래. 아파트는 거 한국어들 파타마다. 그거야마도 이제 뭐게 비용 열대 대로 돌아하고 말게. 그래서 그 당신이 떼어야지. 떼라면 또 정신은 떼는 사람 무슨 대화 착해요. 그 몇개 떼는 거는 대답을 하라 진줄 거고 그래. 떼는 거는 너무 산속 생기면 돼 사고나. 사람 휴가도 사람 쓰여 보여 말이야. 사대도 저기 나한테 뛰어요. 저한테서 이제는 떼는 거 통하면 이제 따로 답답했지. 답답했어. 나 떼어야 강제. 그러면서 속선 기타도 되게 되는 로런도 로가 이거가. 또가 뛰는 로 이렇게 요는 또가 이방만 해서 로. 그런 거 말이야. 그래서 그랬더니 사족선 돈이다 힘기가 정도 말이야. 내가 이거 말이야. sembrano saltare di consiglio.
So first we begin the practice with taking refuge. We take refuge into the 3 jewels, and after we have taken refuge, we also must observe the precept of the refuge. We engage in the excellent path of the 3 jewels. And then in the middle, we must cultivate bodhicitta, the mind's generation. And that in reality is the actual protection. If we first take refuge, ultimately we will be protected by the mind of bodhicitta. So what protects us is the Dharma, and the Dharma is precious bodhicitta. And so therefore we can say that all the samayas are contained within this bodhicitta. This will be our ultimate, our actual protection. So first, when we take refuge, we consider all sentient beings. And so but it is just like we have when you are making a mala, like a jeweled mala or so, then you have all the beads, and you first poke the hole in the beads, and then you put them all on a string, and that is the bond that keeps all the mala beads together. So that bond, which is the samaya, is the ultimate and the conventional samaya that we must observe. ultimately, one must recognize, as for the ultimate Samaya, one must recognize that the mind of all the Buddhas and the mind of all the sentient beings have a single ground. Then the conventional Samaya, we must cultivate love and compassion. So in that way we understand the nature of samsara and nirvana, and we cultivate love and compassion for sentient beings. So that is like the string that keeps the beads together. So in the beginning, one must understand Buddha nature, one must realize the empty nature of mind. And that must be in union with the conventional samaya of bodhicitta. When we give rise to that union, then we will actually connect to the Buddhas. So that which binds us is together through the samaya, like a mala string, that is twofold. One is the understanding of the Buddha nature, and one is the cultivation of the conventional bodhicitta, taking the bodhisattva vow. So we must understand that samaya, and if we understand samaya, then we will give rise to bodhicitta even when we take refuge. When we supplicate the Buddhas, also we must cultivate a bodhicitta. So for example, we say Ta Hum Pam Ho, which summons the Buddhas and the deities. And once we have summoned the deities, through this mantra we become non-dual with them. What becomes non-dual is the mind of bodhicitta. So we must understand that this, what connects us, what merges us with the deity, is bodhicitta. So based on that understanding, one then engages in the visualization of the deity and the mantra recitation. If one does not, if one fails to give rise to that bodhicitta, then one will not have great results from one's practice. If one doesn't understand that samaya is crucial in one's practice. It is said, if the samaya degenerates, it is just like a burned seed. If the seed is burned, then no fruit will grow from that. So when we are unable to keep the samaya, then even if we try to engage in Vajrayana practices, they will not be very powerful. That which gives them power is the samaya. So we must recognize that samaya between the gurus and disciples and amongst disciples. When we observe our samaya to the guru, this does not mean that we have faith and devotion into one guru and then we look down onto some other guru and pointing out that guru's faults. As it is said in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, looking at the faults of those who have entered the great vehicle will lead to your own ruin. So really oneself is harmed if one is looking down on the faults of others. So it is just like when we have a lot of faults ourselves, then we are only able to see the faults in others. We are not able to see their qualities. And so any spiritual master probably is a mixture of both qualities and faults. It probably is very difficult to find someone who is just like the Buddha, who only has qualities. But because we selves are heaps of faults, we are only able to see the faults in others. We cannot see their qualities. And so then when we only see their faults, then actually we are harming ourselves. It is just like a magnet that attracts all, that pulls to it, attracts all the negativity, all the fault. So when we look at the faults of others, we're really harming ourselves. This must be clearly understood. And so how are we harming ourselves? Even if we think about one person, that person is good, but then we still think about the other person as bad, as soon as we have this thought, this is not good, it is called ill will. And from ill will arises wrong views. And in that way, you're harming yourself. Even if there is someone who is engaging in negative conduct, that is his business. He is creating his own karma, and maybe as a result we go to the hell realm. But this is not our business. We must follow the unmistaken words of the Buddha and must purify our mind stream through not looking at the faults of others. So now in the context of the secret mantra, we must perceive the entire universe and all sentient beings to be pure. And then it goes without saying that we do not hold on to a single person to be bad and having many qualities. So we are really only harming ourselves when we do so. So in the beginning, as we engage in practice, we must eliminate dualistic fixation and all sorts of misconceptions, wrong views, and prejudices. We must perceive the entire universe, everything that appears and exists, in the form of the deity. So we must understand everything that appears and exists completely purely. For example, the universe consisting of the 5 elements, these are the 5 consorts, the 5 female Buddhas. They naturally arise. No one has created the elements. And then there's the 5 afflictive emotions within the minds of sentient beings. And these, in true nature, in pure nature, are the 5 wisdoms. So if you're able to think in that way, then your mind will become very clear, very vast, like space, and you will feel unhappy in an instant. And then again, when thoughts of attachment and aversion arise, the mind will become like a frozen ice block. So you must gain experience in that through meditation practice, and clearly discern between the faults of grasping and the qualities of non-grasping. Based on that understanding, we will be able to observe our samayas. So where is that samaya between the gurus and between their disciples? It is just that mind of love, of bodhicitta. It is just that feeling of love that we have for friends, that we have amongst disciples, that a mother has for her child. There's different degrees of love, and the great vast love, that is bodhicitta. So it is that feeling of love that we must identify. And the Buddhas of the 3 times have given rise to great love for all sentient beings. And if we give rise to love, then we will easily connect to the force of all the Buddhas. So that is the very life force. Also Milarepa had said, the cause for the lower realms is hatred. Therefore, practice patience, even at peril to your life. We must never forsake the mind of love. That is the very root of all samayas. Love is extremely precious. It is the root samaya. And how we are always observing love, it is through mindfulness and heedfulness. In the 37 practices, in verse number 36, it is said, in brief, whatever conduct one engages in, one should ask, what is the state of my mind? Accomplishing others' purpose through constantly maintaining mindfulness and awareness is the Bodhisattva's practice. So we are sustaining love through maintaining mindful awareness. And if we sustain mindful awareness and love, then that contains all the samayas of the Pratimoksha, Bodhisattva, and Vajrayana vehicles. So that is the root samaya. And then there is many other branch samayas that I don't even remember all of them, but they are secondary. For example, one of the branch samayas of receiving the Vajravarahi empowerment is not to eat pork. But that is of benefit if you can do that, but it is still not the essence, the essential meaning. Then you still have not understood the essential meaning. The actual root samaya, that is the mind of love. And if you give rise to love, you will actually directly connect to the deity, to the Yidam deity, as you will merge to become the Yidam deity. If we engage in deity practice, not giving rise to love, not giving rise to bodhicitta, then the deity will remain ordinary, and we may take birth in the form of the deity, but in nature a hungry spirit. So it is very harmful to engage in deity practice in that way. So first we must observe samaya. We must clearly understand samaya, the root samaya, which is a mind of love. And it's just like when you have, like you want to make light, and then you have to connect the cables, like 2 cables together into the plug. Only when these 2 come together, then you will have light. And otherwise you can't have light. And this union of 2 is the union of emptiness and compassion. If you give rise to emptiness and compassion, then your mind will be illuminated. So it is important to understand this point.
너희들 공유시 봐야지. 너 계란새가 적성들이야. 남파 썰라 ramyin takwa majak ti sun tenone namba sarwa ta ramyin takwa te thanje chatam chonari ko I mangbo yo tenone sawo ko pa ya majak ti ta sa ni ku ma yin sang bo de ni song ni re te song ji ti dong ne ma xin na la mu bo chen ma re dam ma re ra de to fu sang ne 不是啥人嘛，一个没去接过的。这叫什么呢？咱们啥的可以怎么的呢？那就说啊，上周这样子，不是我就说我这些呢。哦，啥？我说没人没去，女的多嘛的，车的多的，车的多，少的多的，上说可以，上说这玩意，这些什么？ 대시선 동치고 되게 거고요. 그래서 당부터 쪽으로 당고 오 보상도 지내도 그렇죠. 뭐도 이제 뒤로 먹고 그렇죠. 그런 뭐 자꾸 공부고요. 나와 나를 공부고요. 얘는 그 마시는 오다 세속을 되는 정말 기내도 미들 타고 되는 이거 상고요. 세지도 넣고요. 넣고. 이 동시선 단축 생각